Alright, Busman54 here. I was watching a video of Cutworms. He was answering the 7 questions that were going around. And when he finished up, he said, you know, he'd like to throw out a challenge of just one question, like describing what it was like when you got your driver's license. And you know, that's a real good question to pose, and it would generate a lot of interesting and fun stories. And then I was thinking about it, and you know, and if I threw one out there, again, I'd ask one question, and I told Steve it'd be about the first car that you owned. Now I'm kind of I guess a newcomer to my channel in YouTube, so I wasn't sure if that question was already asked and everybody kind of went around the loop and told their story, but must not have. It's caught on. Steve was gracious enough to talk about his first car, pass it on to George, and others have joined in, and I watched and really enjoyed it. I appreciate even those who are not real comfortable and get in front of the camera. The stories were what I hoped they would be, you know, bringing us back to our youth, bringing back some good times. So with that, I delayed in getting mine because I was waiting for some photos, and I was going to hold them up to the camera, and it didn't turn out because they were little Polaroid square shooter 2s, and unfortunately I only had 2 pictures of my first car. They weren't the best, so I took a picture of them with my cell phone, emailed it, put it on my TV, and then videoed it, and that worked out pretty good, and you'll see those in the end of this video. So my first car. Well, the photos have come in. This is, I only have 2 pictures of my 1967 GTX. They were taken with an old Polaroid square shooter 2. I took pictures of it with my cell phone and then put it on my TV. It was blue, and the middle panel was flat black, and as you see, those, I pinstriped it, you know, in them crazy lines. It had a Mopar hood scoop. The car was a 440 with a Hemi-Box 4-speed, Western style interior. And I'll show you next the second picture that I have of the car. You know, it's kind of sad, you know. Your first car, you really take a lot of pride in it, and you only have 2 pictures. All right, I'll turn this off and get the second picture up. Picture number 2. Number 2 is, if you look behind myself and my little nephew on a tricycle, the GTX is there, and you can kind of see the hood scoop, part of the Mopar hood scoop. Yes, this was 1975. I was 19. Maybe actually, no. Wasn't 75. more like 74. My legs and feet got the best of me. I couldn't push the clutch in on my car. I had 4 operations. The cast on my legs went up and beyond my knees. They basically, Mayo Clinic removed my ankle joints and fused them together with pins. Basically, I had to sit with the cat's kind of smacking the camera around. So this is the way I spent a good part of a year. And the cat's tail is in front of the picture. Alright, let's try this. So, I got a second set of casts after almost, I don't know what, the time frame was long. And it went below the knee. And yeah, I actually tried to get behind the wheel and push the clutch in and drive the car. And I wheeled the wheelchair up, opened the door, kind of slid into, somehow managed to slide in behind the driver's seat. And boy, talk about a lead foot. That would have been a plaster foot. Of course, had the insurance off of it. But I did put the clutch in and start the motor up so I could hear it rumble a little bit. I worked about 1.5 miles from an auto parts store. It was a work-study program. It was 1972. And I worked in the automotive machine shop. I rode my bicycle, and I rode it proudly, let me tell you. And I was saving my money. Well, fortunately, being in the machine shop and an auto parts store, you get a lot of good connections on cars. Well, there was this one guy, and as a hobby, he did body work, and he would flip cars. You know, it wasn't his full-time job. He had a regular day job. He just did this because he enjoyed body work, and he was good at it. All right, yeah, my cool crackling fireplace and Christmas tree on the TV comes with commercials, so I had to edit that out. Man, it makes you lose your place too in your train of thought. Man, I'm not sure where I was going next. The car, the first video, okay. The pictures. The side picture you'll see is the side profile of the car. You painted it blue, and in the center you painted it flat black. Well, pinstriping, if you guys remember back then, was pretty cool. So I got white pinstriping, and I did this wild box continuous design. And by the way, it really came out good for the time, all along the side of the car. Next upgrade, I couldn't afford the Krager mags. They were popular, you know. Keystone mags were too, but my pockets weren't that deep. I was able to get me some Mickey Thompson L60 wide tires for the back and some narrow Mickey Thompsons for the front. Painted my rims black and put chrome baby moons on it. So that had to get me by. Next, yeah, we all had the rear end of the car jacked up, so I put hijacker air shocks on the back. Yes, indeed. Raised that rear end way up. Also, you had to sound cool. Well, I had fender well cutout headers on the 440 Magnum that was in it, and I had glass packs. Now, the car had a Hemi Box 4-speed, and I picked up a Hearst Competition Plus. During that time, Hearst had 2 offerings. They had the Super Shifter, and it was really short. I mean, almost like what you see on these Beetles now. And then they had the long, tall Competition Plus, where you didn't have to move your hand too far off the steering wheel to go through the gears. Also, gauges. Who doesn't like gauges? Working at the auto parts store, I got a discount, and Stuart Warner had an offering back then called Stage 1. They had another family called Stage 2, and the high-end family called Stage 3. So I got a complete set of Stuart Warner Stage 3 gauges, which came in their own enclosed housed plastic boxes or housings. Yes, you know, you had the vacuum gauge, which was real cool to watch when you hit the gas, and it let you know you were going to need gas soon. And then had the amps, volts, oil, water. I even got tack and matching speedometer. It had the Western style bucket seats inside. It was black. And I mean, it was a pretty amazing car. My cousins, when they got older, were reminiscing about, you know, their big cousin riding around in the big muscle car, and they were laughing about how on the weekends I would go pick my grandmother up and bring her to my parents' house, and we would grow out. And they thought it was so funny seeing her climb in this big old muscle car with the rear end jacked up, riding off in the sunset, listening to me bang through them 4 gears. Great car. So what happened to it? The surgery, the 4 that I had, didn't go as well as they hoped. Legs weren't doing well, blood flow wasn't doing well. It became very obvious I wasn't going to be able to stand on the concrete 8-9 hours a day doing machine work. I ended up getting a higher paying job in a family-owned machine shop, you know, running Bridgeport mills, surface grinders. They sent me to school to be certified as a welder. They sent me for my journeyman's card as a tool maker. But it was obvious the legs were not going to help me. I mean, about noon I was eating a bottle of aspirins, holding on to the Bridgeport mill, trying to keep the weight off my feet. So, a young man wanted the car badly. His daddy was a banker. I knew I could get enough money to where it would help me get into college. Another thing I was working on was I got certified as being handicapped in the state of Indiana. It made me eligible for vocational rehab, which would pay for my college education. That paperwork, it took me 2 years, and when it finally went through, I sold the car and worked 20 hours and went to school the rest of the time. So that was my first car. I've had many after that with a lot of stories around them, but I'm not approved for that many minutes on YouTube. You know, this first one's probably taking longer than it should. So I'd like to thank everyone on their stories. Looking forward to hearing more. And I'll do another video to answer Steve's question on what car I took my driver's license in and the adventures of that. I won't tag it onto this. It's probably going to be too long as it is. So everyone, have a good holiday. This is Busman54. Enjoy the last 2 photos of my car, and we'll see you next time. Bye.